Julius and I was getting a picture.
Yeah, so
I was actually on the There's your fun fact. That's good.
yes. But if not, then just assume that you're not coming back.
What time was your watch say, Craig?
It's 35 according to Jen Hart.
Okay.
Vanessa said 35. Mary said 35.
35.
I'll say 36.
I would say 36 too. That's all right.
I'm not that smart.
Hopefully the heat's on in here.
I hope so.
Yeah, it's still a little chilly. It is chilly. No, it's going to warm up this week here, up to the 60s. All right, good morning. You survived? Yeah. You survived? Everybody survived? Got all the presents they wanted?
This is afternoon.
Time to leave the bill?
Waiting on it.
You're waiting for the bill, are you? So we are going to be covering chapters 8 through 10 this week. So next week we're going to cover chapters probably 11 through 14. After that we're going to, what comes after 14? 15? We'll probably cover that too, okay? So just read a couple of chapters ahead and you'll be fine, okay? All right, so let me give you a bit of a, just stalling until Shirley gets in.
I didn't know you'd started.
Oh, is this the first time? Is this the first time you're in the class? Is this the first time you're in the class?
Yeah. In your class?
Yes.
Yes.
Okay. What time does the class start at?
35.
32.
Okay.
35. Not Church of Christ time.
That is actually
9:35.
Give
Well,
it
I don't
extra
know if it
5.
is.
I'll
I
be
don't
here.
know if it is. So, in these chapters, it's bringing us to a really important moment in Israel's history with God. There's been a lot of talk about sacrifices and certain sacrifices and how to do those sacrifices. There's talk about God's holiness. Add about 5 to it. Make it 7. You're talking about God's holiness. He's a holy God with an unholy people. There's talk of the tabernacle, but there's something missing from all of it. Do you know what it is? You know what it is that's missing so far? God. God hasn't showed up yet. And this is what we're going to see. We'll see it in kind of chapter 9. So in chapter 8, we're going to do 8, 9, and 10. In chapter 8, Aaron's sons, Nadab and Abihu, isn't that what they're called? They were ordained as priests. They were told to wear certain things, serve in God's presence. In chapter 9 is when God's glorious presence shows up. And what he's saying there is, I have accepted this dwelling place that you've built. I've accepted you as a people. I'm going to dwell among you. And then what happens in chapter 10? Sin happens. What happens in chapter 10? Craig, you've read it already.
It's a fire.
Strange fire.
Strange fire happens, and Nadab and Abihu, what happens to them?
Burn them up.
Burn them up, all right? So the point would then be clear that God's found an appropriate dwelling place. He told them how to build it. They built it this way. He's going to come down. But there's also, in the middle of it, it's joyful. It's celebration time. But there's also a warning. And what would the warning be? You just don't go into God's presence casually. Right? Now, this is Old Testament we're talking about, okay? Remember, we're in Leviticus. It's not New Testament times, right? So just keep that in mind. So, in chapters 8, 9, and 10, we see, well, even in chapters 1 through 7, we see a lot of things pointing forward. And I'll give you a couple of 3 examples. The high priest is pointing toward the priest, Jesus. The way... there's the priesthood, there's a high priest and there's other priests doing certain roles. That's pointing forward to what in the New Testament? 1 Peter, you are a royal
Priesthood.
A priesthood of all believers, right? And then another thing that it'll talk about is how things are structured. There's leadership and there's different things that people do. That's going to point forward to what in the New Testament? Elders, deacons, the structure of the church. So here's a wee quick question for you, and then we'll get into the video. All right? Have you ever looked forward to an event that did not go as anticipated? And I'll give you an example. I did a youth rally. I won't tell you where. I did a youth rally years ago, and I was told beforehand, you're going to be speaking 4 times. When I get there, I was told, you're speaking about 7 or 8 times. And of course I said, well, like, I'm not prepared to speak 7 or 8 times, you know, it's the blah, blah, blah. So it was a lot of pressure on me, and I didn't like that. So I was excited about the event, and all of a sudden it didn't fly the way I thought it was going to fly. So anybody want to answer that question? You ever look forward to an event that didn't go as you anticipated? Or just consider it, and we'll play the video.
When I was a kid, I was all excited about Christmas, and I got socks. I was not happy about socks.
You weren't. Ouch.
I was
Anyone?
going to see my grandkids, and my daughter said, something's come up, Dad, and we gotta go do this emergency thing, and they're not gonna be there to greet you when you get out of your car, and you know that, and it was quite disappointing.
Yes, I'm sure.
Don't like that.
You ever excited for an event that didn't work out the way you wanted it to work out? And this is tied in to this, of course. It's just not a random question.
Piggybacking on Ben's,
Yes.
growing up, one year our mom was really sick leading up to Christmas, so Dad did all the shopping. And so our stockings were like toothpaste, toothbrush, body wash, that sort of thing. Very disappointing.
Nice.
Brute, aftershave, come on.
Nice.
Have some of that brute.
Would you put that on my desk?
I did.
Another bottle of Brute.
I want you to smell nice and
That's after
Good.
karate.
a good bottle of brute. Not like my Ian's cologne, hundreds of dollars.
Oh dear.
Anyway, anyone else going?
I had expectation when I came to work here that I'd be really working with a really decent guy who was a preacher and stuff, and man, I was off.
And it was better than you, right? It was
I'll
better
shout.
than you thought?
Billy, thou shalt not lie.
I shall not lie, Craig.
Okay.
We'll take that.
Welcome back to our study of Leviticus. We spent the last 2 sessions talking about the sacrifices that open up the first major part of this book, chapters 1 through 7. And we remind ourselves together now that the point of these sacrifices is to make us fit for God's presence. God has built this tabernacle, or he has commanded his people to build this tabernacle, which is a dwelling place for God. And then you come to the end of the book of Exodus, and it's built, which is great, but there's this tragedy that, you know, nobody's allowed to go in. Moses can't enter in. And then by the time you get to Numbers, you have God and Moses talking in the tent of meeting in the tabernacle, and you get there because Leviticus, because specifically these sacrifices that God has offered to allow people in. And what I want to do with you for this session is to look at the next 3 chapters, chapters 8, 9, and 10, and to break down what we see in those chapters. And we'll pull it apart in a couple of different ways. We'll first just kind of take in the word and get a sense of the an overview of the narrative. And then we'll do some interpretation. What do some of these details mean and how does it fit together? And then I'd like to, at the end, talk a bit about what difference this makes for us. Where do we take this? What do we do with this? And in this one, we could go a lot of directions. We'll pick one and reflect on how it overlaps with our own lives. So taking in the word, what does it say? Chapter 8 of Leviticus is about the ordination of Aaron and his sons. Aaron is the high priest and his sons are the priests. And so that's the word for what's going on in chapter 8. Let me read the first few verses of it, and then we can talk about some of what else we see in there. It says, "The Lord said to Moses, bring Aaron and his sons, their garments, the anointing oil, the bull for the sin offering, the 2 rams, and a basket containing bread made without yeast, and gather the entire assembly at the entrance to the tent of meeting." Moses did as the Lord commanded him, and the assembly gathered at the entrance to the tent of meeting. And so you've got this, okay, bring all the stuff. Bring the guys who are going to be ordained, and bring the clothes, bring the food for the sacrifices, bring the elements, and come to the tent of meeting. Notice it's mentioned twice. To the tent of meeting, to the tent of meeting. The point is we are going to meet with God at the place where God has promised to meet with us. And then as you continue on, you have a description of Moses speaking to the people for God, telling them some of what's going on, and then readying the candidates. And there's a lot of ceremony involved in this. You first wash them, Aaron and his sons, in a particular way, and then you clothe them with a particular priestly garb, with the urim and the thummim and the ephod and the breastplate and the turban, and you have all these various elements that are important to be done in a specific way. And all the while, you do this always first with Aaron and then with the sons. That's the rhythm. First with Aaron, the high priest, and then with the sons. And once they're ready, you offer the sacrifices. First, you offer a sin offering that purifies them, then a whole burnt offering that takes care of the whole problem of sinfulness and renders them fit for God's presence. And then you have this sort of special offering, like an ordination offering that's also called a wave offering. We have all kinds of offerings in here. And this one is one that is specific for this time. And so they slaughter the animal, and then they do something that is kind of unique. They take some of the blood of the animal, and they put some of it on the right earlobe of Aaron, and then the right thumb of Aaron, and then the right big toe. And then they do the same for the sons. And so you have this kind of unique, kind of to us weird symbolism of blood on the right things. And once again, first Aaron, then his sons. Then you wave the meat with the bread before the Lord as an offering of praise, and then you burn it. You burn it on top of the altar, and you sprinkle the oil mixed with blood. You cook it and you eat it, and you don't leave the tent of meeting for 7 days. That's the command. You have to stay in the presence of God for 7 days. So you eat this meal and you stay there with God. That's the ordination. That's chapter 8. From chapter 8, of course, we remember the whole point of this is God is not here yet, and we are getting ready for his presence. And that's actually what happens in chapter 9. Chapter 8 is the ordination of the leaders who are designed to be go-betweens. And then in chapter 9, you have the arrival of the presence of Yahweh, the arrival of the presence of the Lord. This is the moment that they've been waiting for. This is the time when the king arrives. This is the time when the creator of all things fills this place. And that's precisely what happens. Let's look at the beginning of this chapter 9. It says, on the 8th day, remember 7 days, on the 8th day, Moses summoned Aaron and his sons and the elders of Israel. He said to Aaron, take a bull calf for your sin offering and a ram for your burnt offering, both without defect, and present them before the Lord. Then say to the Israelites, take a male goat for a sin offering, a calf and a lamb, both a year old and without defect, for a burnt offering, and an ox and a ram for a fellowship offering, to sacrifice before the Lord, together with a grain offering mixed with olive oil. That's all of it, man. For today, look at this, for today the Lord will appear to you. They took the things Moses commanded to the front of the tent of meeting, and the entire assembly came near and stood before the Lord. And Moses said, this is what the Lord has commanded you to do, so that the glory of the Lord may appear to you. Moses said to Aaron, come to the altar and sacrifice your sin offering and your burnt offering, and make atonement for yourself and the people. Sacrifice the offering that is for the people, and make atonement for them, just as the Lord has commanded you. And then this is what happens. They offer the various offerings as they are told to do, and Aaron is lifting his hands toward the people and blessing them. And actually, let's read a little bit there at the end. Chapter 9, verse 22 says, Aaron lifted his hands toward the people and blessed them. And having sacrificed the sin offering and the burnt offering and the fellowship offering, he stepped down. Moses and Aaron then went into the tent of meeting. When they came out, they blessed the people, and the glory of the Lord appeared to all the people, not just a few. Fire came out from the presence of the Lord and consumed the burnt offering and the fat portions on the altar. And when all the people saw it, they shouted for joy and fell face down. This is not just symbolism. This is event. This is actually happening. God is having his people provide these sacrifices, and then fire comes out from the presence of the Lord, from the most holy place, and just consumes it all. God takes a big old bite and says, thank you. We are having a meal together. I am here. You are here. And things are good. This is the...
Oh, cool.
Are you serious?
Technology.
Why is it
You
doing
guys
that?
can't hear that?
Technology people, why is it doing that? Technology people, why is it doing that? Technology people. Technology people, why is it doing? I'm not asking you to come up. I'm just asking you.
Fire from the presence of the Lord. Just
Boom, it happened.
just the mention of that.
It's up to this moment because it is the moment when God shows up. But unfortunately, chapter 9 is followed by chapter 10. And if you know what chapter 10 says, you know what I have to write. You have the ordination, followed by the arrival, followed by death. Let's look at what actually takes place here in the story. What takes place, I'm going to read a little bit from verse 1 here, is that Aaron's sons Nadab and Abihu took their censers, put fire in them, and added incense. And they offered unauthorized fire before the Lord, contrary to his command. And so notice what's not here. There's no sense of, the Lord commanded Moses to tell the people. No, God is not saying to do this. God has not said to do this at all. God has prescribed in very specific ways how they are to approach him. Nadab and Abihu, I don't know what was going on. I don't know if they're being rebellious. I don't know if they're being dumb. I don't know if they're getting caught up in the excitement, but they think, oh, you know what? We're going to mess with the liturgy. We're just going to kind of do our own thing. We're going to offer some fire. We'll see what happens next. And well, what happened next was not exactly what I think they were hoping for, because in verse 2 it says, fire came out from the presence of the Lord and consumed them, and they died before the Lord. Moses then said, now Moses speaks, because they were acting without his authority, said to Aaron, this is what the Lord has spoken of when he said, among those who approach me, I will be proved holy. In the sight of all the people, I will be honored. And Aaron remained silent because he understood, man, this is what had to happen. They did something wrong. They shouldn't have done that. And this was, when you mess with God's presence is not to be trifled with. And you have some instructions that follow about removing the bodies. Now you've got these dead bodies in this holy place. Then you've got some instructions for how they are not to mourn as they normally would. And then you've got Aaron's other sons stepping in. So now Eleazar and Ithamar try to do things right. And I'll be honest with you, even you can read it in the back part of 10, even they don't get it all right. So they kind of do their best to step in, and it's not awesome, but God through Moses accepts it. And so you can see here, God's not just being sort of punchy. No, God commanded them to do this. And there's something about the way Nadab and Abihu had taken part in these activities that indicated an irreverence for God. We actually have involved in these instructions, God tells Moses to tell the people, hey, now don't allow any wine to be drunk before you go in and offer the sacrifices. And so it could be that Nadab and Abihu got drunk and went there. We really don't know. But then you have these other guys who step in and they do their best. And, well, God says, I accept the sacrifice, and things are okay. The last verse in the chapter says, Aaron replied to Moses, they sacrificed their sin offering and their burnt offering before the Lord. But such things as this have happened to me. Would the Lord have been pleased if I had eaten a sin offering today? And when Moses heard this, he was satisfied. Once again, the issue there is he knows he didn't do it quite by the book, but they did the best they could in the circumstances. And Moses says, that's okay. So there's your story, folks. The ordination of Aaron and his sons, the priests, the arrival of Yahweh, and yet it's followed by the death of the sons of the high priest. Well, what do we do with this? How do we interpret this? Well, there's a lot to be drawn from this in terms of just paying attention to the details. The ephod and the general attire of the priest is important. Now, we tend to live, at least I do, I don't know where you live, but I live in a context where uniforms aren't that much of a thing. But when a person is wearing a uniform, it says something about them, not just as an individual, but the significance of the role that they're playing. If a police officer is wearing a police uniform, then I'm going to manifest a certain respect because the uniform is representative of the task and the authority. And you could think of other examples like that, and that's kind of what's going on here. God had given instructions for the priestly attire in Exodus 28 and Exodus 39, and here you see different things manifesting God's presence, manifesting God's guidance. You've got the Urim and the Thummim, which seem to have something to do with decision making, and so it's a symbol that God is guiding, manifesting God's deliverance of them from Egypt. So you've got a lot of different imagery with their clothes. And then you've got that strange thing where they put the blood on the right earlobe and the right thumb and the right foot. And here this is about, again, symbolism. It is their, they will hear the word of the Lord and speak it to you. They will do with their hands that which is pleasing to God. They will go with their feet, that which is designed to be for his purposes. And so there's this complete dedication of them. Of course, also, last bit of symbolism before we really try to pull things together. Don't miss the 7 days piece. You probably caught the parallel there to the first week of creation. And so there's a sense in which new creation is here. God has created the world to be a theater for his presence, a temple where he can dwell. And yet because of human sin, we couldn't. And so we're having to start again. And we're starting again with this new creation theme where God is coming to dwell here. And from here, maybe we can reestablish what the world was always supposed to be, what life with God was supposed to be. Again, the main point of this is indeed that Yahweh has finally found an appropriate place to dwell. It's difficult to overemphasize the significance of this moment, but even so, things don't go great. Like again, this kind of starts to feel like the same song, second verse, third verse, fourth verse, next verse. There's actually quite a few parallels that are probably pretty intentional in terms of reading this story in light of things that have happened in Israel's past. Think about the parallels. Moses went up on the mountain to receive the word of God, and down below, Aaron wasn't able to lead the people well, and those under his care caused, with his help, a golden calf to pop out of the fire, and then they bowed down and worshipped it. That didn't go so well. So like the foot of Sinai, here you have those under Aaron's care ruining everything. Like after the flood of Noah, which cleansed the ground and purified creation so that God's people might continue in worship, what happens? Well, one of them gets drunk and does something dumb, just like here. So you back up beyond that. Like Eden, those who were made to dwell in God's presence ruin it by doing their own thing. Nadab and Abihu look a lot like Adam and Eve. We'd rather not obey the boundaries that God has set for us. We'd rather do things on our own. And they get shut out of the Garden of Eden. So here you have God coming to dwell in a new Eden, and the people commit the same mistake. And so you have to wonder, will they be shut out again? Well, no, because offerings are provided and God accepts them even though they're imperfect. So you get the sense that the story of God is unfolding. God is looking for a people to dwell in his presence, and we're getting closer, but we're not quite there. We're moving toward new creation, but we're still on the way. So how do we hear this word today? What do we do with this today? There are a lot of things we could talk about from this text, some probably more obvious than others, but I'd actually like to draw our attention to one of the two parts of this text that I think today, in terms of like figuring out how it applies to us, one of the two parts of this text that probably doesn't sit super well with us. The other part is ritual, but we'll come back and talk about just all the rituals after we've seen some more of those and working through the book. I'm talking about mediation. I'm talking about the fact that God's blessing is mediated by men. Like, why can't God just come directly to all the people, right? Like in this text, God actually comes through Moses and Aaron and his sons. And that's interesting and worth mentioning. So God's salvation, God's blessing is mediated through men. What do we do with this in particular? Well, I do think almost everything about this text previews what is to come. So there's probably three ways we could take this. The first and most obvious way, and if we wanted the easy sermon, we'd go with this, is Jesus is the sole mediator between God and man. You have this statement clearly made in 1 Timothy 2:5. There's one God and one mediator between God and man, Jesus Christ. You also could look at any part of Hebrews. Man, I hope you got Hebrews open as we study Leviticus, because you have a description in chapters 4 and 5, and then chapters 8 through 10 specifically, that Jesus is our high priest. I don't know if you know this, but in this text, the ordination of these priests is the very first time anyone in the Bible is anointed. And we call Jesus the Messiah, the anointed one. So there's an obvious sense in which this text is pointing forward to Jesus. The high priest points forward to the ultimate high priest. There's also a sense in which this text is pointing forward to all of us as believers in Jesus, as members of the body of Christ, as who by the Spirit make up the temple of God. And so the priesthood of some kind of previews the priesthood of all. We believe in the priesthood of all believers. We believe that all who are baptized into Christ have this priestly call to mediate God's presence to the watching world. That's what we do. God's presence is with us, and we are in the world, and so God's presence is in the world through us. You've got a lot of places that talk about this. I think about Revelation 5. I think about 1 Peter 2. You are a royal priesthood. He's saying this to the church of Jews and Gentiles. But actually, the part that maybe seems kind of random, I don't think it is the fact that this also previews in certain ways the leadership of some. Now, I don't think that we should talk about the priesthood within the church. I don't come from a tradition that uses that language. I don't really find that type of language in Scripture to describe the leaders of the church, but I do find in Scripture that we have leaders in the church. So maybe one of the ways that we can apply this text is by saying what it has to say to us about leaders in the church. There really is a sense in which Jesus is the head of his church, no question, but his leadership comes first of all through the apostles. Their teaching in particular, that apostolic message that is deposited for us perfectly in the New Testament, but even then churches are led by elders. We see this in Acts, you have the appointing of elders. We see this in 1 Timothy and Titus, you have the appointing of elders who meet certain qualifications. And then you have, what are called deacons, but I'm going to use the word that I think we use that actually parallels these deacons, these servants, these ministers. It is the same word. And so you've got these various layers of leadership. Not that God does not make himself accessible to every single one of us, but that he has called us to be part of churches that are led by groups of leaders. I actually think that's an appropriate thing to hear from this text because there's a pattern throughout the story of God where this is how things work. So, of course, then you have the question, what do we do with this? Well, I think there's a sense in which there is a responsibility of some to all, a responsibility of leaders to the people. And gosh, if you are a church leader in any capacity, whether one of these titles or just somebody who takes responsibility for others, adults, children, teenagers, D group leaders, small group leaders, teachers, whatever it might be, man, there's a sense in which you should hear this text carefully. You should tread carefully and watch yourself because God's not invited us to make up a new mission that is different than the mission he gave his people. The church doesn't so much have a strategy as much as the church is a strategy. And we have to remember that God is the one who determines what we do with, for, and through our people. There also is a sense in which we who are leaders should be reminded by this text that our job is not to point to ourselves. It's a bad idea, but to point to Jesus because the high priest, is the only one whose perfection is real, the only one who can always be trusted. But I want to end by acknowledging that there's also a sense in which all have a responsibility with respect to the some. The people, we as people have a responsibility to our spiritual leaders. Obviously, there's a sense in which we're called to honor and pray for our leaders. You think about this in places like the end of Hebrews. But the part of this that I actually want to end on, man, I know this may seem random, but I think it's important to say, is that here we see from Old Testament to New that the people of God have this responsibility to discern those God has fit for leadership, called to leadership, to appoint them, and to send them out. That is a call that is upon all of us, to play our part in discerning, appointing, and sending out leaders. I fully confess, I'm thinking about the fact that I am a professor at Ozark Christian College, and one of our charter verses is Matthew 9, where Jesus says to his disciples, hey, I want you to look out at the fields and notice that they're ripe for harvest. The world is the same way. The world is ripe for harvest. So ask the Lord of the harvest, therefore, to send out workers into the field. That is what we as an institution do for our part. And that's, I think, what you as parts of churches should do for your part. Look around you, especially at the younger generations. Start to pray and to ask the Lord to help you discern which of these people are going to be called to a particular type of ministry in God's kingdom, and how can we appoint and equip and send them out. Lots we could gather from this passage that talks about the ordination of the priest, the arrival of Yahweh, and then the death that follows. Hopefully some of these things have been beneficial to you. Come back next session and we're going to talk about what might be one of the weirdest parts of the Bible. Multiple chapters that are very long talking about skin diseases and what to do with them. Until then, indeed, may the Lord bless you and keep you. May the Lord make his face shine on you and be gracious to you. May the Lord turn his face towards you and give you peace.
That sounds like an exciting session next week, doesn't it? Are you saying that there's a lot more in Leviticus than what you've read before? Right? How rich it is, right? Isn't that what you're saying? Instead of like, hey, I'm going to read I'm going to read the whole Bible, then you get to Leviticus, and when you get to Leviticus, I'm sure now you're going to find that. Can you say the word more exciting, Craig? It would be more valuable to you. Yeah. All right. There's so much in there, and so it's on Right Now Media. You can watch it again or watch ahead, even if you want. But again, there's only 11 sessions in this particular class. You could watch ahead because, if you want, there's 16 sessions in this. So Michael and I will decide watch lessons, and we'll tell you beforehand, hey, watch these two, because we're going to skip them. We'll summarize them, then we're going to move on, okay? All right, here's,
Who is that?
his
I'll
name
write
is
him.
Michael.
Mike.
Don't, that's all I know. I can't tell you his last name off the top of my head unless someone has it
Fuzzy.
memorized, huh?
DeFazio.
DeFazio, look at that.
Leviticus, right now, media, you're there.
That's what I would think too. Hi, don't ask me how to spell DeFazio. So, unless you have memorized. I think it begins with D. D, start there.
Leviticus, right now, media, it's much easier that way.
That would be correct too. All right, so here's a wee question. If you could witness a few Old Testament events other than this, which would you choose and why? If you could witness or experience some other Old Testament events, which ones would you choose and why? You've got a big grin on your face. What are you thinking about?
Just mess with them.
Oh, you're messing with them? Okay. It was like you had something in your mind there. What would you choose? Old Testament event.
Creation would probably be pretty awesome to watch.
The what?
Creation?
Yeah, I thought about that too. Yeah.
Yeah.
And why would you say that, Jason?
I mean, it's one of the things that our whole faith is based upon, is that there was a creator to this world, and as humans, we tend to believe more with our eyes than anything else, and so seeing that, I think, would remove a lot of the doubt that sometimes plagues this world, that for there to be a design, there has to be a creator.
Okay, yeah. Anybody else want to see the creation? Yeah.
I would like to walk with the Lord in the cool of the evening in the garden.
Okay,
Nice.
all right. And why? Why would you want to do that?
Perfect peace, perfect joy,
Okay, excellent.
glory.
Good. Somebody else.
Story of Ruth. The story of Ruth,
The story of Ruth. Why?
because she came from a culture that was wicked, and though it's God's planning, of course, that the family had already gone
Yes.
to avoid a famine, and in that process, the two sons married Moabites.
Yeah.
And of course, there was a lot of bad things that they did, but you know that mother-in-law, their mother, taught Ruth.
Yeah.
And she saw the goodness in her. I think
Mhm.
she really did. The Bible doesn't say that. This is all in my mind. But bringing her back, she was willing to adopt Christ or God as her God, and loved her mother-in-law and served her in such a way that a kinsman married her, and she's in the lineage of Christ.
Yeah. That would be a good story to follow, wouldn't it? For a couple of chapters. What event in Old Testament would you like to experience and why?
Isaiah chapter 6,
Isaiah 6.
with Isaiah coming before the presence of the Lord in his throne room, and the angels singing, "Holy, holy, holy," and Isaiah proclaiming, "I am ruined, I'm a man of unclean lips, and I'm from a people of unclean lips, and I've come before the holy Lord."
Why would you want to see that?
Just to recognize the holiness of God,
Mm.
to experience the holiness of God.
Be hard to see because the temple's filled with smoke. That's what it says. Have you ever
Can't
thought
see.
of that?
There's no room for you. God's in there.
And plus, you'd be on your face.
Yeah, right. But it would be a good thing to experience. It'd be scary too, probably, right?
Well,
The
Isaiah-
Ruth thing may not be so scary.
And that wasn't even Old Testament. I'm thinking,
Yeah. Isaiah certainly, that's the first thing he did is drop to his face.
Anyone else?
I'll do Nadab and Abihu,
You'd wanna
number
see
one. I'll
that?
take Uzzah also.
Why do you want to see Nadab and Abihu get
Maybe
it?
I could intervene, say, dudes, don't do this. What are you doing? What's up?
Okay.
Uzzah, I want to do the Uzzah
You
thing.
wanna see Uzzah
Man of
too?
God, I did in the sermon last. I want to be there with him.
Yes.
So what's up, dude? Like to be there with those. Be good.
What about David preparing to fight Goliath?
Good one.
Yeah.
Or
All right.
David when he's on the balcony or looking down.
Question 2. We got 5 minutes. Why do you think Nadab and Abihu's actions were taken so seriously? And then part two to that question is, how should this story affect the way you live and approach God now? Why do you think Nadab and Abihu's actions were taken so seriously? And how should this story affect the way you live and approach God now?
Disobedience is egregious to God.
Okay. Why do you think Nadab and Abihu's actions were taken so seriously, and how should this story affect the way you live and approach God now?
I mean, I could be wrong, but it wasn't so much as where God said, don't do this, don't do this, don't do this, but he gave commands on what to do, specific commands. And in today's, culture, there's a lot of, well, God didn't say this, God didn't say this. Okay, but he did give us exact commands on what to do, what to follow. I mean, you go back and learn God's behavior and who he is. He has laws of change, but God does not.
Okay.
It's a perfect example of do what you're told to, how you're told to do it. Don't try to change his worship.
Okay. Why do you think Nadab and Abihu's actions were taken so seriously, and how should that affect the way you live and approach God today?
God's righteousness is not up for interpretation,
Okay.
and I just need to know the word to know about his righteousness and how far
Okay.
I cross that line or not.
Somebody else, how would you answer that question?
I wonder what was in Nadab and Abihu's mind, because I think yes, it's clear that they offered without God's approval and God telling them to do that, but my question becomes why? And it makes me think with that application of in our practice, whether it's worship, whether it's how we live our daily lives, which is in and of itself a claim of all worship, why do we do what we do? Is it, because I can't help but think, was it arrogance on their part? Was it, I've got this, I don't know what was going through Nadab and Abihu's mind, but I certainly know that often God not only punishes the action, but punishes the motivation for the action.
Okay.
So I don't know if that was an answer, but that's what's going through my mind.
Okay,
right
yeah. So you're thinking, well, what were they about? Didn't he say something in there about after that event, something changed to where you're not drinking as you go into God's presence? Something like that, right? Did you hear that too?
Yep.
So that might have been something to do with it. They were celebrating God showing up. Let's have a party. And they had too much, maybe. I think that's what some commentators lean towards. Beth?
Jumping off what he said,
Yes.
maybe as a human, we think we can update God, or we can help him out a little bit, like improve on what he's asked us to do somehow.
Yes.
And like he's saying, no, I already told you.
Yeah. Yeah, I'm the holy God, you're the unholy people. This is what you need to do to live in relationship
You know
with
what
me.
I mean? Like,
Yeah.
I'm going to do this extra thing for you,
Yeah.
or whatever,
It's what-
outside of what he asked for.
You'll like this. You're gonna like this.
Yeah. Yeah. Now remember, this is Leviticus, Old Testament, right? Remember that. Anyone else?
It's like when the guy touched the ark when it was falling.
Craig's friend?
Ben's friend too.
Oh, yeah. Ozza?
Disobedience.
My buddy Ozza.
He disobeyed. It's just that simple.
He disobeyed.
Good motivation, but disobeyed.
Good intentions are not always what God wants. Right?
What about today? What about today, this second part of the question? How should this story affect the way you live and approach God now?
I think we should approach him cautiously. He's holy.
Okay.
He's holy. He's not this big. Dr. Fortner used to say, he's not a big Furby in the sky. He is a holy God. And I think we maybe sometimes, yes, he is our dad, right? Ava, which is the endearment term daddy, but at the same time, he is holy. So maybe kind of identifying maybe we need to approach God a little bit less casually at times
Okay.
than we do,
Yeah,
if that makes sense.
yeah. Anyone else?
Good thing we have Jesus.
Good thing we have Jesus, yes. Going,
I
gone.
think
Oh,
this holy God is dangerous.
uh-huh.
We,
Is he safe? Mr.
No.
Beaver? No.
Good thing we have Jesus.
Who said anything about safe? That's correct.
Good
Yeah.
thing.
Yeah, you're right though. And you're right too.
Cover our mess.
Yeah. Read a couple of chapters, get into the scabs, and the black spots for next week.
Some mold and mildew going on.
Cold in the middle, doing the black.
What is that?
Thank you.
Then I'll bring the.
Oh, will you? Can I do it better?
Yeah.
It's called the first aid kit for the truck.